She's not playing games with you. She's actually giving you a test, and most men fail it in the first 4 seconds without even realizing an exam was happening. Here's the uncomfortable truth almost nobody wants to admit: the women who seem the hardest to read are usually the ones being the most honest with you, just not in words. Every eye roll, every cancelled plan, every "so do you do this with a lot of girls," none of it is random. It's data. And right now, you're probably failing tests you don't even know you're taking. Here's the part that's going to sound backwards at first: the goal was never to pass every test by being perfect. It was to stop needing to pass at all. Because the moment a man stops performing and starts actually being solid, the tests basically disappear on their own. That's the paradox nobody talks about in the usual dating advice for men content. Trying harder to prove yourself is exactly what confirms you had something to prove in the first place. In the next few minutes, 7 of these hidden tests are getting broken down one by one: what they actually look like, why she's running them, often without consciously deciding to, and exactly how to respond in a way that shows real emotional stability instead of anxious effort. This isn't theory. This is attraction psychology applied to real conversations, real cancellations, real awkward silences that happen to guys every single week. Before diving in, drop a comment with the sign that hit closest to home, the one that's happened almost word for word in your own life. And if this channel is about to become the place that finally makes sense of all this, hit like and subscribe now, because what's coming after this video builds directly on everything covered here. There's a moment almost every man has lived through without knowing what it really was. A woman throws out a comment that stings just a little, something sarcastic, something that could be a jab or could be a joke, and honestly, she's not even sure herself which one it is yet. That's the thing about reading body language and, more importantly, reading the moment itself. The words matter less than what happens in the 3 seconds after she says them. She's not attacking his character. She's watching a live experiment unfold in real time, and he's the only variable in it. Think of it like a mechanic listening to an engine that's making a strange sound. He doesn't panic and start ripping out parts. He listens, stays calm, and figures out what's actually going on before reacting. That's exactly the posture a man needs when a woman tests him with a light insult or a backhanded remark. This is one of the quieter signs of attraction that almost nobody talks about, because it doesn't look like flirting at all, it looks like friction. But friction, handled right, is often where real interest reveals itself. Here's where most men lose the round without even knowing they're playing one. They get defensive, they start explaining themselves, or worse, they try to one-up her with a comeback that reeks of, "I need you to know I'm not that guy." And that's the trap. Over-explaining is basically raising a flag that says, "This got to me," and once she sees that flag, she's got her answer, not about who she is, but about who he is under a little pressure. This is attraction psychology at its most practical. It's not about being liked in every exchange, it's about staying steady when the exchange gets bumpy. So what does passing actually look like in real life? Picture a guy who, when hit with a dry little jab like, "You're not as smart as you think you are," just smiles, maybe throws back something playful like, "Damn, and here I thought I was hiding it so well," and moves on with zero tension in his voice. No lecture, no wounded tone, no need to prove anything. Books like The Way of the Superior Man by David Data talk a lot about this kind of grounded, unshakable presence, and honestly, it's a good place to start for any man who wants to build this muscle instead of faking it in the moment. That's the whole game here, staying amused instead of rattled, because amused is a state she can't destabilize. And this is where it gets interesting, because this test doesn't just show up once and disappear. It shows up in dozens of different disguises throughout getting to know someone, sometimes loud and obvious, sometimes so subtle a man won't even clock it until it's already happened and he's already reacted the wrong way. Something shifts mid-conversation, and it's almost always the same pattern. Texts that were flowing easily suddenly turn into one-word replies, or take 3 times longer to show up. The instinct is to assume the worst, to assume she's lost interest, to assume something was said or done wrong. But here's the piece almost nobody teaches: sometimes that quiet isn't rejection at all, it's observation. She's not gone, she's watching. And what she's watching for is simple: will he chase, or will he stay where he is? This particular test is sneaky because it doesn't feel like a test in the moment. It feels like anxiety. It feels like something needs to be fixed immediately. And that urgency is exactly what separates the men who understand women's body language signals, which, by the way, includes conversational rhythm, not just physical cues, from the ones who are still operating on guesswork. A drop in energy from her side is data, not a crisis. Treating it like a crisis is where things start to go sideways. Now, what does the losing move actually look like? It's the double text. It's the, "Hey, did I do something wrong?" message sent 40 minutes after she went quiet. It's checking her online status 5 times in an hour. Every single one of those actions broadcasts the same message louder than words ever could: your silence has power over my mood. And once she sees that, even subconsciously, the dynamic shifts in a direction that's hard to walk back. This is one of those dating advice for men situations where doing less is doing more. The goal isn't to disappear or play games, it's to simply not let her pace dictate his emotional state. A better move, and one that takes practice more than talent, is to just keep living. Reply when it feels natural, keep the tone warm but unhurried, and redirect that nervous energy into something productive: a workout, a project, a call with a friend. There's a concept in Stoic philosophy, something Marcus Aurelius circled back to constantly in Meditations, about focusing only on what's within a person's control and letting everything else pass without disturbing the center. A woman's response time is not within anyone's control. How a man carries himself while waiting absolutely is. Interestingly enough, this quiet and observed pattern doesn't just show up in texting. It shows up in person too, in a much more physical and immediate way, especially the moment a man brings someone else into the equation without even trying to. A very specific kind of gut drop happens when a woman casually mentions another man mid-conversation: an ex, a coworker, someone from a dating app, doesn't matter who. The name lands, and suddenly there's this internal scramble to figure out what it means. Is she comparing him? Is she losing interest? Is this a warning shot? Here's the truth that takes most men years to actually internalize: the name itself rarely matters. What matters is the reaction it produces, because that reaction is the actual point of the exercise. This is one of the more misunderstood pieces of attraction psychology, mostly because it feels so personal in the moment. But mentioning another man is often less about that man and more like holding up a mirror. She's not necessarily trying to make anyone jealous on purpose. Sometimes it's almost involuntary, a way of checking the emotional temperature of the connection without asking directly. Does he have a strong sense of self, or does his mood shift the second competition enters the picture? That's the real question being asked underneath the surface one. The failing responses are almost too easy to spot once someone knows what to look for. There's the guy who goes quiet and sulky. There's the guy who suddenly starts listing his own accomplishments like he's defending a thesis. And there's the guy who fires back with something sharp, trying to regain control through aggression instead of composure. All three of these reactions confirm the same unfortunate thing, that this person holds real estate in his head rent-free, and she just found the door to it. A much stronger move looks almost boring by comparison. A relaxed, "Oh yeah, what's he like?" or even just a genuine, unbothered follow-up question keeps the energy level instead of letting it spike. Think about how a poker player with a strong hand behaves when someone tries to bluff them off it: no flinching, no dramatic tells, just calm curiosity. This is one of those moments where understanding how to read women isn't really about decoding her at all, it's about managing the one person in the exchange that's actually controllable: himself. None of this stops at conversation topics either. It shows up again, often more painfully, in the plans that get made and then quietly fall apart at the last minute, which tends to reveal even more about who's actually running the emotional show. A text comes in an hour before the plan was supposed to happen. "Hey, so sorry, something came up, can we reschedule?" And right there, in that split second before typing a reply, a man's entire frame either holds or collapses. The instinct is to read this as a clean rejection, she's not interested, she's letting him down easy. But that read is often too simple, because a cancelled plan is frequently less about the plan itself and more about what happens to him emotionally when it falls apart. This is a heavier version of the tests covered so far, mostly because it comes with real disappointment attached. Time was cleared, expectations were set, maybe even an outfit was picked out. That emotional investment is exactly why this particular test hits harder and reveals more. It's one of the clearest signs of attraction hiding in plain sight as a non-event, because how someone responds to disappointment tends to say far more about their inner stability than how they respond when things are going smoothly. The losing responses here tend to fall into two camps, and both are equally damaging. One is the guilt trip, "Oh come on, I cleared my whole evening for this," which basically hands her the exact leverage she was unconsciously checking for. The other is the opposite extreme, going cold, giving one-word replies, punishing her with silence. Both reactions say the same thing underneath, that this cancellation managed to knock something loose internally, and now everyone can see it. The stronger path looks almost anticlimactic, and that's the point. Something like, "No worries, let me know when works better for you," sent without delay, without drama, and then simply moving on with the evening as planned. There's a principle in a lot of dating advice for men content that gets oversimplified into, "don't care," but that's not quite right. The real skill is caring about the outcome while staying completely unshaken by the outcome. It's less about indifference and more about emotional self-sufficiency, the kind where his Tuesday night doesn't actually depend on whether she shows up to it. None of this staying grounded stuff applies only to cancellations, either. It shows up in something even more direct, something that tests composure in real time instead of over text, the moment she decides to ask a question loaded enough to make most men trip over their own words. A specific type of question lands like a small trap, even when it's not meant as one. "So, do you do this with a lot of girls?" Or, "How many people have you brought here?" Or something even sharper, depending on the situation. The words themselves seem simple enough, almost casual, but there's a weight underneath them that most men feel immediately in their chest before their brain even catches up. And here's what tends to get missed: the actual content of the answer usually matters far less than the tone it's delivered in. This is where attraction psychology gets genuinely interesting, because a loaded question is rarely a genuine information request. It's more like a stress test for the nervous system. She's not necessarily trying to catch anyone in a lie or expose bad behavior. Often she's just curious how steady the ground is under someone when the conversation suddenly gets a little more real. Does the temperature in the room change? Does his voice tighten up? Those micro-reactions carry more information than any actual sentence he says in response. The failure mode here is painfully common and painfully visible. It's the guy who launches into a 5-minute explanation nobody asked for, over-justifying every detail like he's on trial. It's the guy who gets visibly flustered, laughs nervously, or dodges the question entirely with obvious discomfort. Every one of those responses does the same thing: it confirms that the question found a nerve, and once a nerve is found, it tends to get pressed again later, sometimes without her even realizing she's doing it. A far more effective response is short, light, and doesn't try to overcorrect. Something like, "A few, why, you taking notes?" delivered with a small grin does more heavy lifting than 3 paragraphs of justification ever could. This connects to something worth sitting with from body language attraction research. Confidence isn't communicated through what's said, it's communicated through the absence of tension while saying it. The words are almost irrelevant. The delivery is the entire message. Staying loose under pressure like this doesn't just apply to conversations either, it shows up again in something quieter and slower, the moment things have actually been going really well and then, without warning, she pulls back just enough to make a man wonder what happened. This one tends to catch men off guard more than almost any other, because it comes right after everything seemed to be clicking. A great date, a conversation that flowed for hours, maybe even a moment that felt like real connection, and then, out of nowhere, a cool down. Slower replies, shorter messages, less initiation on her end. The natural conclusion is that something went wrong, that the good moment was somehow ruined. But often, this pullback isn't about anything breaking. It's about her checking whether the good feeling was solid or whether it was just a temporary high that'll collapse the second she steps back from it. This is one of the more advanced pieces of reading body language and emotional pacing, because it requires recognizing that closeness and testing aren't opposites, they actually tend to travel together. The better things get, the more some women unconsciously want to verify that the man on the other side isn't just riding a wave of excitement, but actually has a stable foundation underneath it. A cool down after a high point is often less, "I'm losing interest," and more, "let's see if this was real." The mistake almost every man makes here is trying to recreate the peak. Sending longer messages to recapture the magic, bringing up the great date repeatedly, escalating effort to match what things felt like before. It comes from a good place, but it reads as chasing, and chasing after a pullback almost always confirms the exact insecurity that triggered her hesitation in the first place. It's like trying to relight a fire by dumping more fuel on ash instead of letting the coals breathe. The stronger approach is matching her energy instead of trying to override it. If she sends a short message, a short and warm reply works just fine, no interrogation, no extra effort to compensate. This ties into a broader theme found in a lot of solid dating advice for men, which is that consistency beats intensity almost every single time. A steady, reliable presence that doesn't spike and crash with her mood is far more magnetic than grand gestures aimed at recovering a high that's already passed. This whole idea of steadiness under shifting conditions leads right into what might be the quietest test of them all, one that has nothing to do with words or reactions at all, but with whether someone actually does what they said they'd do. This last one is quiet enough that most men never even notice it's happening, and that's exactly what makes it so revealing. It's not dramatic. There's no tension, no loaded question, no obvious moment of pressure. It's just a small thing, "I'll call you Thursday," or "let's grab coffee next week," and then Thursday arrives, and either the call happens or it doesn't. No test feels less like a test than this one, which is precisely why it tends to expose the most. What's being measured here isn't charm or wit or confidence under pressure, it's something far more foundational, and honestly far rarer. Consistency. Whether words and actions actually line up over time, without anyone needing to check in or remind. This is one of the more overlooked signs of attraction conversations, mostly because consistency isn't flashy. It doesn't generate a big reaction in the moment. But it accumulates, quietly, into something that ends up mattering more than almost anything said on a first date. There are two ways men typically fail this one, and they sit at opposite ends of the spectrum. The first is simply flaking, saying something and not following through, letting it slide because it felt small at the time. The second, less obvious failure is overcompensating, turning a simple, "I'll text you tomorrow," into a grand gesture, showing up with flowers or some big display to make up for basic reliability, as if consistency needs to be dramatic to count. Both miss the actual point, which is quiet, unremarkable follow-through. The right move is almost embarrassingly simple. Say the thing, then do the thing. No announcement, no asking for credit, no, "See, I told you I'd call." Just a text that shows up exactly when it was supposed to. There's a line worth remembering from military and leadership circles, often summed up as, "Say what you'll do, then do what you said," and books like Extreme Ownership, by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin dig into this idea in a broader context, but it applies just as directly here. This is one of the deeper truths behind understanding how to read women, and by extension attraction itself. It was never really about tricks or lines, it was about whether a man is someone worth trusting over time. So here's the real question, now that all 7 signs are laid out, what's actually going to change? Because knowing this stuff and living it are two completely different things. It's one thing to nod along watching a video, it's another thing entirely to stay calm the next time she goes quiet, or cancels last minute, or brings up someone else's name. That moment is coming. It's just a matter of when. Think back to the last time one of these 7 signs actually happened, be honest. Which one hit? Was it the silence that made you spiral, the flake that made you sulk, the loaded question that made you over-explain? Drop it in the comments below, because chances are, someone else reading is dealing with the exact same thing right now and needs to know they're not the only one. Here's the thing about frame and emotional stability, it's not something that gets unlocked overnight after one video. It's a muscle. It gets built rep by rep, test by test, moment by moment, where the easy reaction gets swapped out for the grounded one. Every single sign covered here is a chance to practice becoming someone who isn't rattled by someone else's mood, someone else's silence, someone else's test. So the real move now isn't just watching and moving on. It's catching the next test in real time and actually applying this. And if this kind of breakdown, the stuff that goes past the surface level advice everyone else recycles, is something worth having in the back pocket, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this channel is going deeper into exactly this, week after week, one real pattern at a time.